This week, Rick and Morty fans got jump scared with some of the worst news they've received since the Szechuan sauce riots of 2017. God rest all those lost souls. With some very serious, troubling news that broke about Justin Roiland. He was arrested on felony domestic violence charges as well as a false imprisonment charge for an incident that took place in 2020. Now, much like everyone else, I was very surprised by this news. I think most people were shocked. This isn't a situation where there was a lot of people wiggling a finger saying, "I told you so, you should have listened to us." This was something that caught most people off guard. These are serious charges he's facing, and a lot of people, myself included, were also confused on what a false imprisonment charge is in this situation, because I think most of us assumed that was something that only a law enforcement officer or someone in that position could be charged with. So I had to look it up myself. And to be fair, you have to have a pretty high IQ to understand false imprisonment charges. So in this case, he's being charged with false imprisonment by way of menace, violence, fraud, and/or deceit, which bumps this from a misdemeanor up to a felony. It levels up the charge here. It goes plus ultra, and it basically boils down to keeping someone against their will by intimidating them, scaring them, threatening them, what have you. So it's a very serious thing. That's not some like joke charge by any means. And of course the domestic violence charge is the one that catches most people's eye because that is just fucked up. Especially because it's a domestic battery with corporal injury. Now the victim here is an anonymous person who is remaining a Jane Doe for this case. A lot of the details of this case are being kept private and won't be released to the public. But basically, it was someone that Justin Roiland was dating at the time, and this incident occurred in 2020. He pled not guilty to the charges, also posted a $50,000 bail, and this has been an ongoing legal battle ever since. He's gone to very many hearings about this. He recently went to a pre-trial. The trial date hasn't been set yet, but this is a very serious case which carries real jail time, should he be found guilty on all of these charges. Now, Justin did plead not guilty, and his legal team seems very confident, stating, "It's hard to overstate how inaccurate the recent media coverage of this situation has been. To be clear, not only is Justin innocent, but we also have every expectation that this matter is on course to be dismissed once the district attorney's office has completed its methodical review of the evidence. We look forward to clearing Justin's name and helping him move forward as swiftly as possible." So they seem to believe that this will just be dismissed pretty soon. I am a little confused on what inaccuracies they're talking about when people are just saying like, hey, this is going on at the moment, which is kind of provable, right? Like he did get charged with these things, he just hasn't been found guilty of them. I'm all for shitting on journalists and the media coverage of things. They can gargle the dirtiest part of my butthole, but in this case, they're kind of just stating like, this is an ongoing thing, which it is, which you're also confirming. So I don't exactly know what specific inaccuracies is being referred to here, but it is important to note that he has not been found guilty on these charges or anything like that at the moment. This was actually just the first of many dominoes to fall in a very bad week for Justin Roiland and for just general fans of his work. A lot of news was breaking about Justin Roiland having a pretty predatory past in terms of how he talks to fans through DMs and shit. None of the text messages and DMs that have been leaking have been completely confirmed as real or verified as of the moment, so I won't really bother showing them. They are turbo cringe, and I, again, don't know if they're real or not, but they're out there. There's a lot of them as well. But one thing that is confirmed is that his game studio, Squanch Games, did actually have to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit back in 2019. No, that's news to me. Justin Roiland had some more shit come out today. Uh-oh. That's no good. He's gonna need a Mr. Meeseeks out there ASAP to do some damage control. Also, it just came out that Squanch Games was sued in 2018 for sexual harassment, discrimination, and wrongful termination. Goodness gracious. Jeez, Rick. Oh, yeah. Justin Roiland's Squanch Games quietly settled a sexual harassment lawsuit in 2019. Oh boy, Rick. Sounds like things were getting a little too swifty over at Squanch Games. That's no good. Yeah, they glorbed right out of the trick hole on that one, huh? Jesus Christ. All of this coming out all at once with Justin Roiland. The floodgates are fully opened. Overall, the whole situation's extremely sad. Even if you don't like Justin Roiland, this isn't something to celebrate. This isn't something that anyone should want to see. Because if he's found guilty on these charges, that means there was a very real victim who suffered greatly. And that's horrible. Now, I'm not a huge Justin Roiland fan these days. I don't dislike Rick and Morty. I haven't watched it in a couple years, but I always enjoyed it. I just haven't really felt like watching it recently. But I didn't like High on Life. I dropped it after a few hours. The writing just became an actual headache. And I'm no fan of fourth wall breaking. I don't find it extremely comedic. So when you like press pause in the beginning of the game and then you unpause and it's like, you just paused the game? You just paused the game during a firefight? Are you dumb? How could you just pause the game? You just paused the game during this gunfight? Oh man, we got a real stupid guy here because you just paused the game during a firefight because you weren't thinking, pausing the game. I can't believe you paused the game. Just droning on and on and on. I couldn't deal with it. So I didn't really like High on Life, but I did like Rick and Morty. And I'd say on the whole, I was pretty tired of that just over-explaining every single joke, stuttering on every single joke. It very much wore off on me, and I stopped enjoying the shtick. So even still, as someone who's not the biggest fan of his recent works, I don't want him to have been someone that beat and falsely imprisoned the person that they were dating. And if he did do that, I'm hoping the victim gets the help they need to get through this situation, because that shit is traumatic, I imagine. So I'm wishing them the absolute best. It would be a disservice and downright criminal of me not to mention the memes that have spawned from this whole situation. With so many people being pretty tired and exhausted of Justin Roiland's style of writing, as well as High on Life being extremely divisive, people have taken the opportunity to just go hog wild, making jokes about all of this. You know, referencing Pickle Rick, talking about how this is the wrong Justin Roiland. The Justin Roiland that's, you know, being talked about with this domestic violence charge is actually Justin Roiland of Universe C-137. That's Felon Roiland. Shit like that. Just a non-stop waterfall of memes. A lot of people have wondered if he is found guilty, what it means for the future of Rick and Morty. It's such a cash cow. A lot of people, like myself, think that they'd probably try and continue it without him, but then it would just slowly whittle away and die. Just slowly ferment and rot. Because not only is he the main voice actor for Rick and Morty, he is also a writer on it. So if he is found guilty, I don't know how you replace him. The show's quality would be in the shitter and it'd fall off really hard. But I do think they would try and continue it without him, but it wouldn't be successful. That would be my thought if he's found guilty here. But of course, the main thing to focus on isn't necessarily the future of Rick and Morty. It's on whether or not someone was truly beaten and falsely imprisoned by this guy, because that is absolutely fucking horrible. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over this situation a little bit here, since it's one I've been glued to for the last few days to see any new developments and what's going on with the whole thing. It's a pretty sad set of circumstances overall, and yeah, just wanted to talk about it a bit. That's it. See ya. There's been a huge update to the Justin Roiland situation. A new chapter has dropped, and man, what a plot twist this one came with. I'm sure all of you already know, but I'll just briefly bring you up to speed since it's been a couple months. It recently came to light that Justin Roiland has been secretly battling domestic battery and false imprisonment charges from his ex-girlfriend. He was accused following an incident in 2020, and since then, over the last few years, has gone to like pre-trials and hearings about the situation, and all of it was revealed earlier this year, which shocked the world and left the Rick and Morty fans thoroughly squanched. Following this news, Justin Roiland was fired from Adult Swim, he was fired from Solar Opposites, and he resigned from his development studio, Squanch Games. It was also scheduled to go into the next phase of all of this with a trial. However, today, everyone's trick hole got glorbed. It was announced that the domestic violence charges against Justin Roiland, this whole case, was dismissed. According to a spokesperson for the district attorney's office, they said, "We dismissed the charges today because there was insufficient evidence to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt." They further added that significant additional information came to light. That additional information that came to light that surfaced here in the fourth quarter with the buzzer beater to stop this from going to trial is not elaborated upon. It hasn't been made public, obviously, so we can only speculate. I have no fucking idea what it could have been. Maybe Justin Roiland sent a rough draft for Rick and Morty Season 9 to the district attorney and he loved it so much he dismissed the case on the spot. There's no telling. Nothing about the case really has ever been made public. Not even the actual incident that occurred in 2020. None of it has been made public, so a lot of this has just been through legal speak and pretty vague about the actual occurrence as well as the particulars around it. So this additional information that eventually led to the case being dismissed, we don't know what it was. So because of that, it's left a lot of people on Twitter to start talking about how foul play could have been involved here, some under-the-table dealings, bribery, or things like that, corruption. I don't know about all of that. There's really no telling, since again, none of the information about any of this was ever really made public. Though I will admit, I do think it is a little odd how quickly it got thrown out once it made it into the media cycle. This has been something that's been going on for a few years now. I'm assuming there must have been some level of substantiated evidence behind the claims. Otherwise, how the fuck would it have made it this far along the legal process? I would imagine this would have got slapped down immediately if they never had any evidence in the first place, just this giant fucking nothing burger. I assume there must have been something, but now they're citing an insufficient evidence to support the claims. So I do get why people are a little heebie-jeebied about it. I do understand. And like I said in my last video, I am still surprised that Adult Swim and Solar Opposites both acted so quickly to shit-can Roiland before he was ever even found guilty on the charges. I assumed at the time that they must have had additional information that the public didn't have into the insights and the inner workings of this case, and they fired Roiland based on that. But it's looking like that wasn't the case, since he is presumably innocent now since this case has been dropped. So that leads me to believe that either they acted in order to wipe the dog shit of his reputation off of their shoe as quickly as possible as to not hurt their brand, and it was just bad optics to keep him around, or they fired him based on all of the other allegations against him, some of which were made by co-workers and still current employees of these productions. None of these have been fully confirmed, so of course take them with a grain of salt, but a lot of his co-workers have come out very strong against him, citing that he was extremely lazy and actually hadn't had an active role in the development of Rick and Morty in a long time, refusing to work, difficult to work with. And the way some other colleagues talk about him make it sound like he was an actual toddler in the office, so they'd say, like, they didn't even know he was in until they'd hear his dogs or his remote control toy car zooming around the office. So they describe him as just being difficult to work with and that they didn't really like his presence, which I guess may have been something Adult Swim and Solar Opposites would have taken into account. And then a lot of these degenerate DMs started leaking. Of course, none of the sources are 100% confirmed as authentic or anything. He would flirt as if he was actually fucking Morty from the show in real life, so he'd say things like insane in the membrane and like, "Auga, boobies, boobies." Like, the text messages were really fucking embarrassing. And there are even allegations that at least one of the people that he was flirting with was underage, and, you know, others were like people he had worked with before. None of it has been confirmed beyond a shadow of a doubt, like as 100% real or anything, but this was just another big shitstorm that Justin Roiland was facing in the midst of all of this, and a lot of allegations. Now, since the case has been dismissed, he has made a statement, but he doesn't address anything outside of the felonies he was facing. Roiland says, "I've always known that these claims were false and I had never had any doubt that this day would come. I'm thankful that this case has been dismissed, but at the same time, I'm still deeply shaken by the horrible lies that were reported about me during this process. Most of all, I'm disappointed that so many people were so quick to judge without knowing the facts, based solely on the word of an embittered ex trying to bypass due process and have me cancelled. That it may have succeeded, even partially, is shameful. However, now that the legal case is ended, I'm determined to move forward and focus both on my creative projects and restoring my good name." I do think it's a little odd that he's choosing to use the word cancelled here when all of these charges were private. None of this was ever made public. The X has never come out publicly. None of the information has ever been made public. All of this was handled behind closed doors and only made it to the public eye because of some sleuthing from media outlets, I believe, since the trial was not too far into the future. If the allegations are actually false, I still don't know if cancellation would have been the motivation behind it. Because I feel like if the goal was cancellation, the ex would have come forward and publicly revealed all of this information instead of trying to handle it legally. Like, that wouldn't really make sense for that goal if it was cancellation to try and handle it, like, behind closed doors. I feel like they would have wanted to do everything in their power to, like, publicly drag Justin Roiland around and talk about all of this. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of people aren't super happy about Roiland's response here, citing that he doesn't really seem to understand that even though he was able to prove his innocence to the legal system and prove at least that the charges didn't have enough evidence to support them, they weren't strong enough to lead to a conviction on the accusations, that innocence wasn't proven to the public. And in fact, the public has never even known exactly what the fuck even happened in the first place with the incident. So a lot of people took issue with him talking about how disappointed he is that people believed lies from his embittered ex, which I do agree is kind of odd because, again, there's never been any specifics about what happened or even what this whole thing is even about, other than the fact that Roiland, for a few years now, has had 2 felonies that he's been fighting: domestic violence and false imprisonment. And people were talking about, like, oh wow, that's pretty concerning that that's happening. Those are scary charges. So that's all people have ever had access to, and even now, after the case has been dismissed, people still don't know what the fuck was even going on to begin with. All of the evidence and everything has been kept under lock and key, so even though the charges got dropped, for a lot of people, that's not good enough since he wasn't proven innocent publicly, since none of the information is public. So a lot of people are still saying that there is a chance that there really was a victim here that was just unable to provide enough evidence to convince others that this event happened, even if it really did. So it's just been a mess. So all the public can do is look at the fact that he was battling these very serious felonies and say, fuck, that's not good. That is scary. Those aren't, light felonies by any means. That's the only information that the public has ever had access to, and the only thing that they can base their perspective on. Now that the case has been dismissed, obviously that changes a bit. And if all of the allegations are truly false, then that is a crime in and of itself, and should be taken very seriously. If it is proven that everything that has happened was based upon an embittered ex lying to ruin Justin Roiland's reputation and try and ruin his life, that is a very serious thing as well that also needs to be addressed. So the whole thing is just a pretty fucking horrible situation top to bottom. Again, he doesn't talk about any of the other allegations, at least not yet. I imagine he probably will going forward, especially the ones from the coworkers and the DMs. But anyway, just wanted to give a quick update on all of this, and that's about it. See ya. Today there were a handful of moments that went viral on Twitter from the Young Thug trial that's ongoing. And I really want to talk about them. I need to make it clear right away, I know next to nothing about the Young Thug trial. I don't know what the particulars of the case are, what he's being accused of, what he's potentially facing. I don't really have a clue, but you don't need to know the lore behind why the trial is happening to understand why these moments are so wacky. I'm going to go ahead and start by showing you what I believe is potentially one of the biggest head-scratcher moments the American justice system has ever heard.
Regardless, is less than 1% of this whole indictment. This reminds me of this anime named Bleach, where it's 16 seasons. Every episode is about 18, 20 episodes. Sorry, every season is 18 to 20 episodes. And they have season 4 and 5. They have these bouts. They're villains of the whole thing in season 4 and season 5. The main characters are trying to get them out of soul society.
Pardon the interruption. I'm not trying to jump scare you here, nor am I trying to intrude on this passionate speech about the Bount arc from Bleach, but I think it's important because I imagine most of you haven't seen what she's referring to, and God bless you, keep it that way. The Bount arc in Bleach is regarded by many, myself included, as one of the worst arcs in all of anime. It's basically about vampires that get introduced out of nowhere and then leave out of nowhere, never to be addressed again. It is a garbage filler arc that serves only to waste your time and insult your intelligence. It is truly trash. And I'm one of those poor souls that endured the torture of watching it. I didn't know the Bount arc was filler. So I subjected myself to that almost never-ending nightmare. So when she brought up the Bount arc here, it was like an old wound reopening and then having salt poured in it. I had a repressed memory come forefront and then like post-traumatic stress disorder as a result, because she brought up the Bount arc in this fucking trial for some reason. Now, she is representing someone else who is involved in this case. His name is Rodalius Ryan, and the way she's trying to weave in the anime reference with the point she's trying to make is interesting.
You go to season 6, you don't hear about the bounce. You go to season 7, you don't hear about the bounce. Why don't you hear about these important characters? Because they're filler characters. It's a filler season. Me with Darius, we're fillers. We're not integral to the story. They just drag him out of prison to jail to make this bigger than it has to be. We're basically distractions. So, as a juror, what can you do to tell the state, we're not going to be distracted. We don't need to listen to filler. You come back at the end of this with a not guilty for Darius Ryan. You tell them we do not want to waste our time on fillers. We just want to get to substance. So I guess, sit back, enjoy the show, get some popcorn, because this is not justice, this is a circus. Thank you.
I find that closing remark, this isn't justice, this is a circus, hits even harder since it follows an entire speech about anime in a legal setting. Like, she isn't wrong, this is set the dial from serious all the way to silly. We have cranked that shit up now. We're talking anime. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is how I imagine a Discord trial might go. You have Judge Wumpus presiding over a case, slamming the gavel. Order! Order! Huh. Interesting. Tipping a fedora. This reminds me of that time in Naruto when Rock Lee took off those training weights against Gaara. Am I right? Isn't that right, jury? Like, it's just... It is taken anime and put it in a setting where it shouldn't be. This is a very professional spot that deals with people's lives. Like, you're there to represent your client, and you're using anime in your opening statements here, I think is probably the wrong move here on the chessboard. Not the strongest opening. Based on how she sums up her opening statements, it seems like the point she's trying to get across is that her client is not important in the overall case, thus their presence is only there to serve as a distraction or inflating everything. Thus, you know, it's filler, like Bleach Bound Arc. Now for the next clip I'd like to show you, you're gonna have to really open up your ears here because the audio on it is some dog ass. It's pretty bad. For some reason, quite a few times throughout the trial, the audio would just get really fucked up.
But to Jeffrey, thug had a different meaning. Now, some of you read books about Tupac and what it meant to be thug life. Thug life, the hate you give little infants, Fs, everyone. Meaning discrimination and racism hurts all of us. We teach that to our kids.
Now, this is Young Thug's lawyer, and right now he is trying to get into the kitchen with a ton of ingredients and start cooking. And the recipe that he's following, well, it's got some interesting flavor to it, to say the least, with the direction that this dish ends up going.
That was not what thug meant to Jeffrey. Thug meant and means to Jeffrey something very personal. It was his path. But if he could ever make it as a musical artist, and help his family, himself, and his many others out of this endless cycle of hopelessness, he would be truly humble under God. That's what thug means.
I tried my best to edit out the long pauses he takes. I don't know if he's like a classically trained actor or something, or he's auditioning for a thespian troupe. I don't really know. But he takes these like long, really dramatic pauses mid-sentence, and it just dragged everything so long. My theory is that the reason he keeps pausing and stopping for a little bit is because he's stalling for time so he can continue to come up with something in his noodle up here, and he eventually comes up with a banger. He ties it into... This is not what thug actually means to Jeffrey, Jeffrey being Young Thug's real name. He then says the thug stands for truly humbled under God. And when I heard him say that, I did one of these. I actually just shot back. I was like, wow, he fucking did it. He pulled off a miracle. Like, I could imagine, like, the jury standing up and clapping like, man, that was so moving, wiping tears from their eyes. Truly humbled under God. Now it all makes sense. Like, it's such an incredible Hail Mary play from the lawyer here. Obviously, this is a bunch of fish paste. That is, the thug in Young Thug doesn't stand for anything. It's not an abbreviation. That wouldn't make any sense. Let's just play ball with this idea here, this fantasy that it stands for Truly Humbled Under God. That would mean his name would be Young Truly Humbled Under God. That would be his artist name. That is nonsensical. But it was a really interesting tactic here, a very odd strategy that I couldn't help but appreciate. Like, I found it impressive to go to this level of like on the spot thinking to try and just pull something out of your ass is admirable. I unironically love that strategy. I think it's just a banger. It makes me want to give it a try. Like the moist on my shirt, it stands for Mopey Outlook is super terrible. And it's all about having a mopey attitude is a bad thing, and we gotta turn that frown upside down. It's all about a positive outlook, baby. And actually, that's a perfect segue into another thing Young Thug's lawyer tried to pull off in the trial today. It's another very incredible strategy.
And the indictment that the prosecution had the grand jury return says he's holding up a blood sign, and that furthers this conspiracy. There's nothing wrong with holding up a blood sign. But that's not a blood sign. A blood sign is like this. It looks like a B. That is a P. Jeffrey's fingers are down. And what you'll learn is that Jeffrey just released with Sergio Kitchens, performer known as Gunna, a song that is wildly popular. It's around the globe. It's called Pushing P. And it's positivity. It means any circumstance you're in, if you think positively about something, you can make it through. You're pushing positivity. You're pushing P. Jeffrey is showing the P.
If ever there was a time for a standing ovation in court, it would be right then. This guy, in front of all of humanity and God, went out there and said, actually, what you're looking at is a P with his hands, and it references pushing P, which stands for pushing positivity. That is so good. That is so fun. What a fucking W. Like, I'm sure most of you remember pushing P from like a year or so ago. I never fully understood exactly what it meant. I believe, like, the main usage was pushing P references like pursuing success while still maintaining integrity, like being loyal to the people that you care about, that you're close with, like your friends, like never forgetting where you came from while pursuing success. Which, I guess in a way, you could argue that pushing P is pushing positivity, I suppose, though I don't think the P ever stood for positivity, ever. But from this point forward, if I ever see pushing P again, that's immediately where my head's going. From now on, if I see pushing P, I'll be like, oh, pushing positivity, I get it. All because of this lawyer. I don't know how these interesting strategies will pan out in court for Young Thug and everyone else on trial. I don't know anything about the case. All I know is that these clips from today's trial are really interesting, to say the least. I just had to share them. I had to talk about them a little bit. I guess we'll see how it all plays out. That's really about it. See ya. Today, I just learned about one of the most bafflingly unhinged criminal cases I've ever read or watched. And it's honestly made me disappointed in all of you for not making me aware of this situation sooner. Shame on you in particular for hoarding this filth to yourself and not letting me into the lunch table to learn about it with you. I'm talking about the wild case of Nicholas Alaverdian, otherwise known as Nicholas Rossi, aka Arthur Knight. This man's got more names than a phone book. He goes by many different gamer tags. I wouldn't be surprised if more aliases come to light and there's shit like Dark Ruler 52XX or something. And his story in this whole situation is an unbelievable, true story of absolute lunacy. Dateline recently ran a piece on the Nicholas Alaverdian situation, trying to untangle all of the wild web of mysteries that have been woven here. It is just vile, evil shit. Nicholas is a degenerate worm of a person, but he's also a goofball goober who came up with the dumbest idea ever when he was confronted with the reality of his crimes that he is accused of committing. He is accused of extremely serious charges. He is accused of raping multiple women in Utah. And he came up with this galaxy brain scheme in order to escape the repercussions. He faked his own death. He must have been inspired by Dino Spumoni from Hey Arnold, when Dino Spumoni faked his own death to increase record sales or whatever. But in this case, it was a lot darker than that. He faked his own death to get away from rape charges, and then he fled the United States. He was recently put back on the radar after he checked himself into a hospital for COVID-related symptoms. Eventually, pieces of this puzzle started falling into place, and authorities were able to connect the dots that, this guy claiming to be Arthur Knight may actually be this wanted fugitive that the US really wants to have extradited. And that's led to about a year-long battle with Nicholas Aliverdian, or Arthur Knight, or Nicholas Rossi, in order to have him face justice for his actions. I'm going to go ahead and play you a quick clip from 5 months ago when a different news organization was covering the basics of the story, just to give you a more concise breakdown than what I just provided.
It was breaking news on 12 News this morning. A Scottish court has ruled that a man who goes by the name Arthur Knight is actually a Rhode Island man who faked his own death and is wanted on rape charges.
Kate, Nicholas Aliverdian, also known as Nicholas Rossi, claimed to have been the victim of mistaken identity and insisted his name was Arthur Knight. A court in Scotland ruled that evidence showed that was not the truth.
The person appearing before me is Nicholas Rossi, the person whose extradition is requested by the United States.
35-year-old Nicholas Aliverdian was arrested last year after checking himself into a Scotland hospital with COVID-19 symptoms.
So it's been this ongoing battle where he is claiming that it's a case of mistaken identity. He is not that guy wanted for rape charges. This is a huge misunderstanding. Everything's all cattywampus. You got it all wrong. That's an innocent man right there. Unironically pulling the old cartoon gag of wearing like glasses and a fake mustache and pretending that you're not the person of interest. Like the ultimate disguise.
In July, Knight was arrested again, and prosecutors matched his fingerprints to Aliverdian's. Friday, prosecutors of the Scottish court revealed they were able to tell he was Aliverdian after matching the tattoos on his arm.
I am ultimately satisfied on the balance of probabilities.
Aliverdian is accused of raping 2 women in Utah and sexually assaulting another in 2008.
I wanted to include that section from the broadcast because I didn't want to leave any wiggle room for some pseudo-intellectuals on Twitter to try and make some brain-dead argument about how the authorities got it wrong. They did do their due diligence in gathering evidence to try and confirm that these are the same person, that Arthur Knight is not real. That is not an innocent man. It is the same man who was wanted for those rape crimes. Like, it is not a case of, well, maybe they just didn't do enough. It's not like they just had one investigator, pounding cheeseburgers and wiping the grease on like some papers of Nicholas Aliverdian, and then he saw that after looking at a picture of Arthur Knight, and he's like, Eureka, it's the same person, they look similar. That wasn't the case. They have the fingerprint evidence, they also match tattoos, they do have a good bit on their side to lend validity to the claim that this is the same person. But if you're still not sold on that, maybe the interview will be enough to get you on the right side of history here, because they have an interview with Arthur Knight, and it is one of the wackiest clips I've ever seen in a criminal case in all my days. It is gold. It is absolutely fucking extravagant. This is like some thespian A-tier acting.
We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted. And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband. But I can't, because I can't breathe, I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly, exactly.
What do you say to someone who believes that you are Nicholas Aliverdian?
I am not, Andrea, I am not Nicholas Aliverdian. I do not know how to make this clear.
What do you say to people who say these are crocodile tears, he's putting on a show, this is all an act? Oh,
Andrea,
no,
that's a low blow. That's a right low blow.
If this man isn't up for an Oscar this year, then the entire industry is dead and corrupt. Absolute unreal. That is a passionate performance. He is literally performing for his life right now. Like, this is high stakes. This clip is how I found the story, by the way. I thought what I was watching is James Corden's only entertaining piece of content ever. I thought it was James Corden playing a character. And I was like, wow, James Corden actually did a decent job. Like, this made me giggle a little bit. And I was like, holy shit, wait, this is real. Like, that whole segment where he's like, oh, you think it's fake that that I can't breathe and can't walk? Well, then what do you say to this? As he, like, miraculously rises. He's like, well, watch this. Whoa! This whole thing really feels like a sketch from Whitest Kids You Know. The whole interview is unintentional brilliance. Also, hats off to his supporting actress here. She also does an amazing job. So, like, when he's going to stand up, she's like, oh god, no, don't do it, you're gonna die! You're just gonna kill him! Like, he's about to explode from standing up. She's like, no! As he, like, slowly begins his ascent out of the chair to prove a point. Explain this then, science! Ah! It's so good.
What do you say to someone who believes that you are Nicholas Alaverdian?
I am not, Andrea, I am not Nicholas Alaverdi, and I do not know how to make this clearer.
This segment is also fantastic, very reminiscent of SpongeBob Rock Bottom. I can't understand your accent, except here it's gasps for air. Which, of course, is all part of the act, but I really appreciate that he's not afraid to draw clear inspiration from other art, such as SpongeBob. So I appreciate that. Also, the wambulance pulls up and he starts trying to get some tears out. He's not doing a good job of selling the crying. So if I was to critique his performance here, I would say he needs to work on getting tears out because his eyes are very dry. He doesn't actually get any moisture in there. He doesn't get any of his tear ducts firing, so that falls a little flat with the fake tears, but imagine if he was able to pull that off. This would have been a true combo of acting expertise, and it would have been one of the finest performances we've ever seen.
What do you say to people who say these are crocodile tears? He's putting on a show. This is all an act. Oh,
Andrea,
no,
that's a low blow. That's a right low blow.
What a dynamic duo here. A power couple. The chemistry between them, the synergy, is immaculate. So the interviewer asks, what do you say to people that are saying these are just crocodile tears and you're putting on a show? Without missing a beat, the woman there is like, oh, geez, come on. Have some class. Can't you see this is a broken man we're dealing with? Oh, jeepers. Zoinks, come on now. Where's the professionalism? Really? You're gonna hurt his feelings. And this is the cue to Nicholas to immediately, go fucking hog wild into the fake crying, which he's not great at, but it's complemented by the woman sitting opposite of him to kind of like egg him on and try and be there as like this shoulder to not cry on. So really just a fucking fantastic team they make. What a great pair. Now, unsurprisingly, the great acting here wasn't enough to get him an official pardon or anything, so it's still not looking great for Nicholas Alaverdian at the moment. And here's hoping he will finally face justice for his crimes that he is accused of. This is just an incredibly wacky fucking story, and one that's been, like, many years in the making. Like, I'm shocked I've never heard anything about it, because this really feels like a pretty high-profile case, but maybe I've just been oblivious to it, or it just never really got the mainstream attention, which is just surprising, because it is really weird. The whole thing is very weird. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit after finding the clip and kind of going down the rabbit hole. That's really about it. So yeah. Good morning, butterflies. It's me, your fairy godfather, Charles. And I'm here to grant you a special wish. And that wish I know you just made was for knowledge. So I will go ahead and pollinate you with my sweet nectar of knowledge. The situation I covered a couple days ago with the individual who was driving with a suspended license on a Zoom court hearing about his suspended license actually has some huge twists and turns here that not even the Game of Thrones showrunners could have figured out to subvert our expectations. The whole galaxy, but especially the Michigan Secretary of State's office, owe this man a huge, sincere apology. Addressing the elephant in my ass, yes, I am still not home. I am still in front of this SpongeBob title card of a background behind me, but it's very funky and I appreciate that. I'm still on the run. I publicly said My Hero Academia fell off and I haven't been safe since. So, anyway, for those of you that are unfamiliar with this whole case, I'll drop the lore for you. An individual named Corey Harris went viral for this Zoom court hearing where this happened.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Wait. Okay. So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And he was just driving. And he didn't have a license.
An iconic moment in legal history that will no doubt be studied by the best and brightest minds in the field for eons to come. A perplexing case. Now, all of humanity was clowning on this. I made a video talking about this briefly and then going over some other really classic Zoom court moments. Because it's just so silly. Like, to go to the Zoom court hearing while driving with a suspended license, it's kind of a fucking power move, actually. Like, that's a statement right there. The only thing that could have made that any better is if he was puffing on a cigar while drifting around. I've really got this as like a cheesy action movie in my head right now where he's the main character. And then he like gets out of the car and he pushes away on a skateboard and hits a kickflip or something on the way out and tells the judge to pipe down. He's got more important things to take care of. But it turns out, like a transformer, there was more than meets the eye here. So while he may have been driving with a suspended license on paper, it turns out that wasn't the reality of the situation. It was actually a clerical error. It is true that his license was suspended in 2010, however, it was rescinded in 2022. So what happened is, due to this error in the internal combustion engine that is our beyond dog shit legal process, that information never made it through the proper channels. So he should have been totally green light to drive. You can take the license away from the man, but you can't take the man away from the license. It's the same thing. I just said the same thing in a different way. That's definitely not how that's supposed to work, like the expression. Point is, it's not like when they took away his license, it was like the Space Jam basketball taking away his like ability to drive. He still had the capability of driving, just not the legal authority to do so. But in 2022, he did get that granted back to him, or at least he should have. But apparently the soulless husks at the Michigan Secretary of State's office never received the clearance from the Saginaw Friend of the Court. I hate that title, by the way, Friend of the Court. That shit sounds so childish. Makes me feel like I'm reading a Dr. Seuss book. Yes, this is the Michigan Secretary of State's office requesting thumbs up from the Blorbus County Super Buddies. Looking for big pats on the head, please, nuzzles you. I don't know, I hate that. Just Friend of the Court sounds so stupid for like an actual legal thing. So because the Michigan Secretary of State's office never got that clearance, the lifting of the suspension never went into effect, so the judge was working off the paperwork that was incorrect, stating that his license was still suspended when, in reality, it was not. They tracked down the clerical error and it has been rectified. However, Harris did spend 2 days in jail. And he made this statement saying, "With the type of ties that I have with the church and the community, it's very embarrassing." Which I completely understand, and this whole thing is turbo dog shit. It's more than just like blushing of the cheeks, like embarrassing, you know, it's not like his voice cracked while asking someone on a date or something. Like, this is pretty serious. It's unjust what happened to him. Please ignore the Ford ad. They break up every 3 sentences in this article with an ad. I've now sworn that I will never buy a single product that advertises on any mainstream news outlet because of these intrusive fucking abominable ads. But this is the explanation. So the deputy legal director for the Michigan Secretary of State told the station that the process to get a driver's license reinstated can be a complicated process. Sometimes it's as simple as, we at the Secretary of State's office did not get a clearance from the court that everything was done, but something happened in the wires and we needed to talk to the court to get the clearance and clean it up for the resident. Which they didn't do until he had already been in jail for 2 days. So, like, he still suffered from this, and I think he should be compensated for that. He didn't do anything wrong. But he had no way of knowing that or knowing how to properly correct this. In an interview that he gave after the dust had settled with all of this hoopla, he did mention that his license was supposed to be fixed 2 years ago, but it just didn't. So he was aware that there was something definitely awry here, something was wrong, but he didn't really know what to do about that. So he still ended up, turning himself in and all of that. And then in the interview, he did mention at the end, always double check the workers because they say they're going to do something and they just don't. He's 100% right about that. When you deal with anyone in any kind of government position, it seems like they view it as a shameful thing to do their job. Like, they seem to want to do everything but what they're supposed to, which really hurts just normal, average people. And also, no one watching what happened had any way of knowing that either. Since this story came out with this update here, people have been mad at me saying, like, oh, how could you have fucking slandered this man? You should have really looked into this a little bit deeper so you would have known he was innocent from the start. Brother, look around. What the fuck are you talking about? How would I have gotten that information unless I was fucking auditing them? Like the goddamn, what was it, the Saginaw friend of the court? Like the Michigan Secretary of State's office? What am I supposed to do? Like march on over, kick the doors in and say, everyone, hands up. I'm going to need to see all your paperwork here. I saw this silly clip online and I need to verify the authenticity of the driving without a license charges. Give me everything you've got. I got a fucking warrant here for all of it. So, come on. Like, there's not an amount of research anyone could have done to find that information. They had to track down the clerical error on their side. There is nothing some fucking bumbling reptile brain idiot like me could possibly do to get that information because it is not available unless you literally worked there and investigated it. I do think some of the records with the suspension and then like the rescinding of it are publicly accessible documents you can have access to, but it's still not something that you as just like the average dick in hand Joe Schmo can do to connect the dots on why those wouldn't match up, like why this paperwork didn't make it through the whole process, what the hang up was. Like, that's not something that you can track from the outside, I don't believe. So I'm definitely sorry, and I'm super sorry that this happened to him in the first place, because again, he did nothing wrong. He was completely blameless for the driving with a suspended license charges here. Like, the biggest apology of all should come from those authorities there, but there's not going to be any repercussions there. They're just going to throw their hands up and go, whoops, clerical error. Gee whiz, sorry, bud. And that'll be the extent of that. They'll just wash their hands of it and be done with it, close the book, and nothing more will come from it. And it's a real fucking shame. They never face any real repercussions for fucking people in the face like this, and it sucks. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe something comes from this. Maybe there's some kind of internal change where this kind of thing won't happen as often in the future. Doubtful, but who knows. Anyway, though, I feel terrible for Mr. Harrison. What he went through here, he did not deserve it at all. That's about it. See ya. It's baffling how common it is for people to live stream their most embarrassing moments on purpose. They're filming their own lowlights, their own worst ofs for the montage of shame. Things most people would want buried forever, they are proudly with a smile on their face broadcasting to their audience for content. Today, an extremely trashy stream clip has gone viral with a streamer named Elisa Jordana firing up a live stream after learning that her boyfriend has been cheating on her. I'm going to go through most of what happens in the stream, but the clip everyone's seen, which we'll get to towards the end, is at the very end of the stream. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes. She gets her boyfriend in the car, and then she starts attacking him while she's driving. So she starts physically hitting him. And then she hits him very hard in the nose, like a full-blown strike to the nose, like a fucking monk's palm strike to his nose. It was quite a wallop. Like, if she was playing that boxing bag game that you see at bars where it measures your punch and it, like, grades your force up to 999, she probably would have scored, like, a 700 with that strike. So it definitely could have caused some damage. She threatens to kill him, and then she continues to escalate it. She grabs on his ear and starts pulling on it, and then he starts fighting back. So he starts fighting her. He starts yanking on her hair, telling her to stop the car. And she does stop the car. He continues yanking and pulling on her. She gets out of the car. He gets out of the car, chases her down, and then he gets back in the car and turns the stream off. Without a doubt, one of the worst live streams I can think of in recent memory. It's hard to watch. It's awful. It's crimes. Like you're watching crimes unfold.
He lied so much to me. He lied so much to me, and he lied, and he told her I'm just like a streamer, and it was just an investment, and like the whole time he was talking to me, he was talking to her the whole time.
Gadzooks, what in the fuck would possibly possess you to want to start a live stream after learning something so heavy? That makes no sense. How poisoned must your brain be to possibly come up with an idea like this? Learning that your boyfriend has been cheating on you, and then immediately turning it into a stream for content? That's incomprehensible. I don't understand why people want to broadcast every single waking moment of their lives to a bunch of strangers online, a ton of goobers who are just going to sit back tossing popcorn down their gullet because it's just entertainment to them, even though it's your life that's being ruined in real time. Why do that? Fucking Jack Bauer couldn't torture me enough to force me to go live after learning something like this. He could put all the jumper cables he wants on my nipples and scrotum. I still wouldn't do it because it's a horrible thing to want to put out there. I couldn't even imagine just firing up the stream. Hey guys, this one's going to be a little bit different than usual. Turns out she's getting piped by another man right now. They're steaming ham as we speak. Oh, thanks for the $6. Charlie's girl is slobbering on my meat. Ha ha ha.
And sending her money on Venmo.
Yeah, but why are you surprised?
I'm not surprised, Brandon. I'm not surprised. Actually, I'll go to Tanger's Outlets right here.
I just don't get why you would cry over him, dude. Like, you already got money. You already supposedly got money from him.
I did, but he still was very bad, Brandon.
Yeah, so what do you think would happen if you're going to marry him, this and that?
I'm not marrying him, Brandon. I'm obviously not marrying him.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you...
She then goes for this joyride, or lack thereof joy, and it's the most distracted driving I've ever seen. No exaggeration. She doesn't even pretend to be paying attention to the road. She is glued to her phone or reading the chat, I believe, because she does get donations. She has text-to-speech enabled, so she is getting donations throughout this stream. And she is always looking at something other than the road. That is extremely dangerous, not only to herself, but all of the people on the road around her. And you can see that she busts out that crazy U-turn and gets honked at because that came out of fucking nowhere like a jump scare to all the other drivers. This is just, it's unhinged. This is, again, unacceptable. It's illegal. You can't be driving like this. I understand she's upset after finding out her partner's been unfaithful. Anyone in the world would feel the same way. But not many people in the world would handle it the way she is, by starting up a fucking live stream for people to be tuned in on with everything. Not only is she very dangerously behaving here on the road, but she then starts just dropping all kinds of personal information publicly. Just publicly revealing a lot of things that 100% should stay private.
Why is that a no? Okay, I'm gonna go to Tanger's Outlet actually with his card right now. All right, let's do that. Tanger's Outlet. Let's go on a shopping spree.
Hope you find your way home. 48 JSK.
Not that much money left. Should I spend this money? Sparrows for everyone?
Another lore dump for you for why she drove to the mall here. It's because she had his wallet and stated she wanted to go on a bit of a shopping spree with his cards. And then on stream, she actually opens his wallet and shows his driver's license and says, should I drop his cards in the Discord? So threatening to also just show his cards to her community. She then takes money out of his wallet and says, should I buy food for everyone? Those are all crimes. Again, you're compiling evidence against yourself. You're doing the police's job for them. You are actually showcasing criminal activity. Now, unless I missed something, she doesn't actually spend any of his money. She doesn't actually use any of his cards there. She just makes the threats that she could and would do so. She does, however, actually open his wallet, and you can see his driver's license clearly because she's bouncing it around like something out of the Disney Channel. So you can see that, but I don't think you can make out any of his other cards. But regardless, this whole thing should have never been put online. I don't know why she made the decision to start streaming this. Again, she does have text-to-speech donations enabled, so it's possible that this is all just to get some, like, money from people that are sympathizing with her because she's going through something horrible. Getting cheated on sucks. But the way she's handling it is fucking awful. She's distracted driving, dangerously putting other people's lives at risk on the road, threatening to commit some criminal actions live. And then it ends with her assaulting him, physically assaulting him live. Like, this is a horrible fucking stream.
And he thought, oh, Discord's stupid. A lot of people say that, right? So all of Scora's private information, as well Sarah's phone number, Sarah's address, her full name, her Venmo account, transactions, are all
James donated $5. Girl, is your Mexican girl hot?
It sounds as though Elisa has fully doxed the guy and the girl here, posting all of their private information in her Discord, which is illegal. You can't do that. I also think it's worth mentioning, since you caught a glimpse of it there, anytime that girl, Sarah, is brought up during this stream, both Elisa and the community of pay piggies that's donating to her always make sure to mention that she's Mexican, and they make statements in the chat about that as well. Throughout the stream, reading the chat, there were so many moments of genuine racism, it was fucking sickening.
FYI, February...
I called Sarah, you fucking bitch. I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm fucking killing you. Okay. Sorry.
You had hit him in my presence.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about the bad topic.
Well,
I think
I
you
can
stay out.
talk about it.
No, I said I'm going to stop talking about it.
Okay, good. No, it's not okay.
You ever been cheated on for 2 years with a 20-year-old Mexican?
I'm
I doubt
not getting into
it.
my business.
Okay, all right, well, I'm just telling you that's my business. I really don't want to talk to you.
This happened shortly before the viral clip from this stream where she starts hitting him in the car. So prior to them getting in the vehicle, she pushed him outside, and it was actually observed by someone who confronted her about it, because in this instance, her violent outburst was in broad daylight in view of public and bystanders. So someone came up to her, I believe it was an officer, and talked to her about it, and even during this talk, Elisa still finds a way to mention that the other girl is Mexican.
Hello? Hi, Sarah, how are you? How are you, Sarah? Hi. Thanks so much for calling. I'm just gonna send you like 6 months of texts of your nudes and, you know, different sentences that he...
Sarah, I'm sorry about this.
Don't talk. Don't fucking talk.
Idiot.
Yes, Sarah, we're really sorry about this. I'm sending him your way today.
Fucking...
Yeah. No, so Bahram, how do you pronounce it? Do you know? I don't know.
Shut the fuck up, cunt.
Yeah, what's up?
She's half your age. She's half your age.
Delete the number, please.
I cut out the ending here because it's a lot. Like, even this much, I don't even know if YouTube will allow me to show. I'm really not sure. It's legitimate assault. So she hits him a couple of times, the nose hit by far being the biggest blow. And then after where I cut it off, he grabs her hair and starts yanking and pulling on her, and she starts talking about how he's killing her, and the car stops, and then eventually she gets out of the car, he chases her down. I think she gets in another vehicle in the background, and then he comes back into the car and turns the stream off. It's a horrifying thing to watch, to be honest. As of right now, Elisa has been arrested. Her mugshot and booking information is all out there for this incident. There's no update on the guy or what's going on with that part of all of this, but what a fucking awful live stream. Now on Twitter, there's been a lot of debate about this video on whether or not the man's actions were justified in this situation, and most people are saying that they were, claiming that he was acting in self-defense. And it seems like the law would agree with them on that take, because from everything I can find, he hasn't been booked or charged with anything. Now, I think it's important we remember that the guy in this video is no saint. He cheated on his significant other. That is the behavior of a piece of shit. But under no circumstances does anyone deserve to be beaten like this. He's not a good guy, but he is still the victim of an assault. And I think all of the video evidence suggests that this was a case of self-defense. He didn't lash out at her or strike at her until she went in again for like the third or fourth time, assaulting him. And then he did fight back. Now, I do think there is a case to be made that he may have taken it too far, because he does yank and pull on her for quite some time, even once the car comes to a complete stop. So I think he probably could have gotten out of the car at that point and just left it entirely, left the situation entirely, but I also don't know the entire situation on where it was stopped, if it may have been dangerous to do so, I don't know. But overall, I do agree that this does seem to be him defending himself, like, from getting attacked in this vehicle. Overall, this was a fucking awful live stream. And I really don't think this is going to be the last of its kind that we see, because it feels like it's getting more and more common with people wanting to live stream every moment of their lives, even the worst parts of it. So there'll probably be more things like this in the future, which sucks. I think it's just an awful direction, but just wanted to talk about this. That's about it. See ya. Yesterday, Gordon Ramsay jump scared everyone by revealing he'd been in a serious accident and said that the helmet he was wearing actually saved his life. And he also thanked the doctors and everyone that took care of him in the hospital from it. And basically it's a message kind of urging everyone to wear a helmet when cycling.
Hi guys, it's Gordon. I'd like to share a very important message with you all. You know how much I love cycling and triathlons and Ironman, etc. This week, unfortunately, I had a really bad accident and it really shook me. And honestly, I'm lucky to be here.
He really does seem shaken up by this whole experience here. When I think of Gordon Ramsay, I immediately think of him calling someone an idiot sandwich and yelling and screaming. So if I had heard that Gordon Ramsay got into a bike accident, I would immediately assume that he got off the bike, started shaking his fist at it and calling it a fucking donkey or something and spitting on the bike. But then he'd walk away unscathed, unfazed, and throw a grilled cheese in the fireplace and just take a big old bite out of it. But in this case, that's just not what happened. Whatever the accident was, it really has taken some kind of toll on Gordon, and he's trying to educate people on the importance of helmets and how it actually saved his life. Now, this is a lesson that people have heard a million times in their life. I'm pretty sure this has been taught more than the multiplication tables in elementary school. Everyone knows you should wear a helmet when cycling. But in current day and age, a lot of people just don't give a fuck about that anymore. They just kind of wipe their ass with safety for the sake of, like, convenience, maybe. But in my area in particular, there's a ton of cyclists. They swarm, and I almost never see any of them wearing helmets, which I always find odd, because what's the point in playing life on Ultra Nightmare mode? It takes like 5 additional seconds to just throw on a helmet real quick, and it could be a game changer. To me, the risk versus reward ratio here is all cattywampus. It's not computing up here. I don't see why you wouldn't just wear a helmet to be safe. It's not like you get some kind of like additional benefit out of not wearing one, so I don't really understand it, but I'm not your fucking dad. If you want to go out there without a helmet on and I see you on the sidewalk, I'm not going to slam on my brake and drift my car in sideways, so I'll get out and start, you know, giving you a spanking and telling you that you're being naughty for not wearing a helmet. That's fucking your choice to make, I suppose. I think it's a silly one, though, and I really appreciate that Gordon Ramsay's coming forward and using his platform to just try and educate people again on how important a helmet is and how it can actually save your life.
Now, from those incredible trauma surgeons, doctors, nurses in the hospital that looked after me this week, they were amazing. But honestly, you've got to wear a helmet. I don't care how short the journey is. I don't care, you know, the fact that these helmets cost money, but they're crucial. Even with the kids, a short journey, they've got to wear a helmet. Now, I'm lucky to be standing here. I'm in pain. It's been a brutal week, and I'm sort of getting through it. But I cannot tell you the importance of wearing a helmet.
That is a gnarly bruise right there. Calling that a bruise is doing it a disservice. When I bang my knee on this desk when I get excited, I'll sometimes bruise. That is like you got hit by 5 sledgehammers. That looks like the damage you would suffer if One Punch Man accidentally flicked you in the oblique. That is a crazy amount of bruising. I don't know how he's standing.
This weekend is massive. It's Father's Day for new fathers, old fathers, middle-aged fathers. I want to wish you all a very happy Father's Day. But please, 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 please wear a helmet, because if I didn't, honestly, I wouldn't be here now. Happy Father's Day.
An unexpected video from Gordon Ramsay, but an appreciated one. Like, he's just sharing his first-hand experience here with something traumatic that he went through and how he believes his life was saved thanks to that helmet, and of course the doctors and everyone at the hospital that treated him, and just trying to spread that message. And I think that is nothing but 2 big thumbs up for me there. But Twitter is a different story. Twitter ghouls have this impressive ability, almost like an X-Men level mutation here, it's almost a superpower, to find the stupidest spins on even the most cut and dry situations. Something as simple as, hey, wearing a helmet's good to keep you safe. Maybe you might want to think about doing that. They find a way to turn it into something bad. One intellectual powerhouse replied to Gordon's video saying, "Complete shite, Gordon." And then he dropped this fat little nugget of wisdom here, which is a graph that shows death per billions of kilometers cycled versus the helmet wearing rate percentage of these regions. Imagine being the loveless loser who comes in here going ballistic because a guy who almost lost his life is talking about how a helmet might have saved it. Now, this individual isn't the only one fighting back against Big Helmet here, but he is by far the most adamant. He is tooth and nail in the trenches, still replying as of me making this video like 18 hours later, it seems. So he is definitely their fiercest warrior opposed to helmets. Now, he makes arguments that helmets do nothing to mitigate serious injury. They only help with like scrapes and bruises maybe, but doesn't actually do anything to contribute to cycling safety, and calls them an unnecessary distraction, and then says the big issue that needs to be addressed is fixing infrastructure and driver policing. Now, let's say Gordon Ramsay subscribed to this guy's belief system. He'd be dead. If he viewed helmets as an unnecessary distraction, Gordon Ramsay would be 6 feet under right now, fucking making risottos up in heaven. So, legitimately, he is just wrong about them being an unnecessary distraction. In the situation Gordon Ramsay is describing, without that helmet, he wouldn't have survived. I also just don't understand what it's a distraction from. Is it distracting you from sending your 4,000th tweet in the last 24 hours? Like, how is it an unnecessary distraction? It takes fucking 5 seconds to put a helmet on, and it does help keep you a bit safer. Of course, it doesn't solve every problem magically. Nobody is saying it does. He's fighting a ghost here in the comments. He keeps thinking that everyone's saying that a helmet solves all the biking-related issues with, like, cyclists dying, whatever. Like, that's not what anyone's saying. All they're saying is it does just help your odds, and in this case, it actually did save Gordon Ramsay's life. There's just no reason not to wear a helmet. The main thing he wants is better infrastructure for cyclists, which I do completely agree with, especially in the United States in particular. Having better infrastructure for that is absolutely the safest possible thing for cyclists. He dropped this here talking about how the solution is the infrastructure and that the helmet is an easy out by promoting it. And no one's arguing that a helmet is going to, you know, make sure that cyclists are immortal or anything. But it's just like the easiest thing you can do to immediately improve your odds of surviving something traumatic like Gordon Ramsay experienced here. The beautiful thing about having so many neurons in your brain is that you can actually focus on multiple different things at the same time. You can be saying we need better infrastructure to keep cyclists safe, while also saying, hey, cyclists, helmets do actually help you in the event of an accident. It improves your odds a little bit. You can do both things. Again, a helmet is not this end-all be-all of safety, this panacea that cures any possible problem with, like, cycling safety. But it is something that undeniably helps. Another thing this cringe vulture and a few others like him do in the comment section is latch on to this idea that we don't wear helmets while driving, which makes everyone a hypocrite because driving causes a lot of head injuries. Basically just keeps reiterating, why aren't you wearing a helmet while driving a car? You absolute goober, when you drive a car, most people wear a seatbelt to improve their odds of surviving a crash. The car is also equipped with safety equipment such as airbags to help keep you alive in the event of a crash. On a bike, what do you have? Did you put an ejector seat on your bike to immediately get out of a tricky situation? You put a baseball card in the spokes of your bike and then installed some fucking airbags down there too to keep you alive? No. The only thing that you can really do here on a bike in this context is wear a helmet. That would be the equivalent of wearing a seatbelt while driving. You're making dog shit arguments for an indefensible position. Don't wear helmets. You're a fucking lunatic. It sounds like you've already hit your head and you want more people to join you there. He even has the gall to say this. The reasons not to wear a helmet is that you take more risky decisions when wearing a helmet and drivers take more risky decisions around you. He's almost saying that it's more dangerous to wear a helmet than it is not to and just raw dog it, which is just ridiculous. It's so silly, I don't even know where to start. So he thinks that cyclists who are wearing a helmet make more risky decisions because they're wearing a helmet. I don't think so. I don't feel like when people put on a helmet, they think that all of a sudden they become Superman. I just don't see that being the case. Just like someone who puts on a seatbelt doesn't immediately think they can fucking ramp off of a parked tow truck like it's GTA 5 and be unscathed. I don't think that's the case for cyclists wearing a helmet. And I really don't think that drivers are going to start treating you different if you're wearing a helmet versus not. Like, I don't think drivers are going to see you wearing a helmet and be like, oh, this guy can take a little bump here and just fucking swerve into him or anything. If you're wearing a helmet, I don't think drivers are going to start making riskier decisions because they think you're in, like, fucking body armor or anything, versus if you weren't wearing a helmet. I just don't see that being the case in reality at all. He also goes on to say helmets are no use in collisions involving motor vehicles, which fucking obviously. No one's saying that you're going to be able to take a car head-on in a game of chicken just because you're wearing a helmet on your bike. It's a stupid argument to make. Oh, well, if my bicycle helmet can't stop a bullet, what the fuck is the point in wearing it, I suppose? I'll just go without. Useless to me now. It's silly. It's super dumb. There's no real good argument you will ever be able to make that wearing a helmet is a bad thing. And Gordon Ramsay's video and message here is just an overwhelmingly positive one, and I'm happy to hear that he's recovering and he's okay. And I'm wishing him the best going forward. And I appreciate that he's sharing this message, because clearly it is one that is still somewhat needed here, because there are people out there that don't think helmets are worth wearing, I suppose. So it's not like a useless message either. So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. I got a bit heated here, clearly, about this anti-helmet rhetoric, which I think is just so fucking dumb that I was baffled. So I dove deep into this rabbit hole here, and I just had to talk about it a little bit. Again, glad Gordon Ramsay's alright. That's about it. So yeah. Today was a big day. R. Kelly got sentenced to 30 years in the slammer for sex crimes and human trafficking. I first heard the breaking news during stream while watching Moist Esports compete in the London Major Rocket League tournament, and I gotta tell ya, I was blown away. Here was my initial reaction to that information. R. Kelly just got 30 years.
It's possible to show
Victory scream!
for something new.
Huh? I think most people know R. Kelly for the time that he pissed on an underage girl. Most people just kind of remember him as the super soaker sprinkler tinkler who just urinated on a fan who was underage. That's mainly his legacy, but some people do also remember him for his music, but outside of his music, he has a long history of doing awful, awful shit that he's finally going to prison for. I'm honestly surprised his bribery attempt didn't work. I remember he made a very public statement saying that if he's found innocent, he'll release more Trapped in the Closet chapters, and I really thought that would do it. I figured that would clear his name, the judge would just throw out the case on the spot because he'd be hungry for more Trapped in the Closet lore in the extended universe. But I was surprised to see that the judge held strong. He didn't waver, even with such bribes on the table, something that no human being can really resist. More Trapped in the Closet, are you kidding me? So hats off to the judge for not giving in to temptation and sin. For those that don't know, R. Kelly is the mastermind behind the Trapped in the Closet epic, which is a 33 chapter long song, each chapter being its own self-contained song, and it is one of the finest pieces of art our species has ever concocted. I can't even find the right words to describe it. It's just on a whole nother level. Like, this is why we were put on this goddamn space rock, so that way we could listen to Trapped in the Closet eventually. All roads of evolution led to us listening to Trapped in the Closet. It is so unbelievably goofy. I'll give you a brief synopsis, but I won't be able to do it justice. So the song was created by R. Kelly, who must have been dangerously close to a ketamine overdose when he came up with the lyrics. It's just kind of like the first things that popped into his head when he made this, but it's all about cheating. And then the crazy series of events that happens as a result, just like a cascade of lunacy. So it's like an opera where they sing back and forth, and it starts with a man cheating on his wife. And it's set to one of the wackiest beats ever. It's like something you'd find on Fiverr by accident. It sounds like an alien abduction, so there's like a water phone going off, like with some kind of really basic like hit and snare behind it that's just and a leaky faucet on top of that that'll just hit you with one of these. And then in comes the lyrics, which are absolute genius. It starts off kind of tame, you know, things like, I'm cheating on my wife and I know that she'll be mad, but god damn it, just had to bust a nut so bad. And then it like really starts ramping up, like, I hear her husband, he's climbing up the stairs. I hear a chainsaw revving, I said, damn it, that's not fair. So I pull my Beretta out and I put it to his wife's face and I said, put that chainsaw down or I blow this bitch's blood all over this place. So then he puts the chainsaw on the floor and I said, good. Now we can talk like adults. And he said, no. I said, you sure? He said, yes. And I said, why? He said, no. Like he gets into an argument with himself in his song. Like those are bars that he'd spit back and forth. Like, no. He said, yes. I said, yes. He said, no. It's fucking amazing. And then it just like, he always ends every chapter on a twist. So it'll be like, it turns out that's not his wife, it's my wife, and I would never abuse her, and there's a knock at the door, and it's me from the future, future, future. And then it's like, going into chapter 2, it's amazing, it's fucking amazing. Also, I stole that last line from Andrew. We used to spit Trapped in the Closet style lyrics back and forth at each other, and he came up with like a beautiful cliffhanger for R. Kelly Trapped in the Closet with like the time travel line. It's just so unreal. Like, I still can't believe that it actually exists. I listen to, like, the first 12 chapters pretty often. He ends up introducing, like, 40 characters, and then going into, like, chapter 13 through 25, he completely switches gears where he doesn't follow any of those 40 characters, and instead follows Rosie the nosy neighbor, who's just a side character. Just completely shifts it, and it's a lot more boring. Like, it really falls off after chapter 12, but... you know, it's hard not to appreciate the first fucking 12 chapters of this goddamn thing. It's unreal. So I really thought, you know, like, bribing the judge with more of this might just do the trick, but it didn't. Long story short, you might know him from Trapped in the Closet, and if you don't, you should. Realistically, I think most people remember his Ignition song. That was the one that was, like, the chart topper for him. That one was really popular. But I also remember him for a different song that wasn't quite as popular. It was an Ethiopia concert where he performed a song that tried to get women in the audience to come back to America with him, supposedly to join his sex cult. It's a really odd video that not a lot of people mention.
You have your passport. Did you get your shots? Girl, would you like to come back with Rob to America? Do you have your passport? Did you get your shots? Who wants to come back with us to America? To America.
Fuck, I live in America, and I was about to buy plane tickets to come with Rob to America. Shit goes hard, you know? Like, how can you say no to that? I still can't believe this is real. No one really mentions this for some reason. It's so goofy and disturbing to just go on stage and try and, like, manipulate people into, like, wanting to go with you to, like, allegedly, like, a sex cult thing. Fucking pretty blatant. Even made a whole song around it, because the background band also even chimes in with some harmonies saying, like, America, America. And, like, they're clearly in sync with the music, so they practiced this, they rehearsed it, they knew this was going to be a song. Like, do you have your passports? Did you get your shots? You want to come back with me to America? Kind of weird, kind of silly. But that has nothing to do with any of his charges, I don't think. I don't know if this is something he's being charged for. But overall, he just has a long history of being an absolute fucking villain. A long documented list of tons and tons of evidence to support the claims of a lot of victims of his. And really, it's overdue that he goes to jail for these things. So that's great, even if it comes at the cost of no more Trapped in the Closet. God damn it, it's a sacrifice we're gonna have to make. And to be fair, R. Kelly could absolutely make more chapters of Trapped in the Closet while in prison, because the beat is just a leaky faucet and then a couple of, like, drum hits, which you can just simulate on literally anything. Like, that could work, and then just the leaky faucet noise. So really, this doesn't even have to be the end of Trapped in the Closet. Who knows? This could just be the beginning. Transitions into more closely related to his life, like Trapped in the Cell, something like that, perhaps. But anyway, I think this is great news that he finally received a long sentence here for all of these crimes. I know this has been like an ongoing legal battle for quite some time, so I imagine this is a huge sigh of relief for all of the victims to finally have justice served here, with R. Kelly basically receiving a life sentence. He's 55 years old, so 30 years here. I mean, that's probably gonna do it. But yeah, anyway, that's about it. See ya. I'll look that up. Someone mentioned it earlier. Apparently the creator of Mighty Magiswords on Cartoon Network got busted for child porn. I don't know that series, Mighty Magiswords. I've never seen this or even heard of it. Came out in 2015, ended in 2019. Kyle Carrozza, arrested on CP possession charges. What is this last statement? I'm a little confused. The crimes he is accused of do not apply to drawings, figurines, statues, or films rated by the Motion Picture Association. Well, no shit, I don't think the Motion Pictures Association is rating child porn. Like, wait, what does this mean? Am I stupid? Why can't I parse what that means? Oh my god. I totally forgot because I switched from... I am so sorry. Because I switched the source from display to window, it doesn't follow when I do a new window. That is entirely my bad. Sorry, sports fans. Here, jump scare, Kyle Carrozza. Sorry, my bad. I just sat here fucking reading this like a stupid goober. Mighty Magiswords was Kyle Carrozza's show, but had worked as a board... I'm just gonna have to reread all of it, I guess, now. But had worked as a board artist on a lot of big shows here. What I was saying, though, now that we're all here together, this last line is very confusing. So it's talking about how it can be charged as a misdemeanor, felony, punishable up to 1 year in county jail or 5 in state prison. If found guilty of either charge, Carrozza will be ordered to register as a sex offender. The crimes he is accused of do not apply to drawings, figurines, statues, or films rated by the Motion Picture Association. So what I was saying is I don't really understand what that means, because obviously the Motion Picture Association is not rating child porn. Like, there's not going to be a Rotten Tomatoes for it from them. Like, what am I not understanding about that? I'm pretty sure it just means this wasn't, like, lolly hentai. It was actual legit CP. Okay. I feel like there was a better way to say that. Like, I feel like there had to be a better way of getting that point across. He worked on 124 episodes of Adventure Time as a board artist. They mainly talked about his credits with, like, Fairly Odd Parents, Casa Grande, Animaniacs, Snoopy... Doc McStuffins, whatever the fuck that is, Fishhook. Looks like Cartoon Network can't clown on Nickelodeon for having predators anymore. Cartoon Network can't clown on anyone, they're closed. What do you mean? Wait, was Cartoon Network actively doing that, like in their marketing material? Yeah, Nickelodeon's got SpongeBob, and also some predators, not like Cartoon Network. Were they taking shots somewhere? Where was that? Oh, apparently they're not actually getting shut down. Wait a minute, wait a minute. That was still just an unsubstantiated rumor, apparently. They are still going to continue with original programming. It's just that they had huge layoffs. What's your stance on separating art from artist? I've said this 100 times now. I used to firmly believe that you can separate art from the artist. Until Ian Watkins, lead singer of the Lost Prophets. They were once my favorite band. I even had them as my... website background music that would play when you visited my Pixo site called coldflames.pixo. I was a huge Lost Prophets fan. Ian Watkins turned out to be a massive pedophile, an actual baby raper, and once all of his crimes made it to the public eye, I could no longer listen to that music. It was impossible. Especially because one of the songs that Ian Watkins made with Lost Prophets was literally him subtly bragging about being a pedophile in the music. When you look back on it, knowing what he was doing. So, I used to believe you can separate art from artist. I don't think you can do that, or I don't believe that that's possible in certain circumstances. So, like, if I was a Mighty Magiswords fan, I probably couldn't watch it anymore because of this. Would you watch a Kevin Spacey movie? Yeah, I don't think I could do it for Kevin Spacey either. But the difference about Kevin Spacey is he's a part of a movie. Whereas Lost Prophets, again, for example, he is the music. He wrote the lyrics, helped compose the music. Whereas Kevin Spacey, he's just like a small component of an overall bigger product. You know what I mean? So maybe I could do it for Spacey. But I haven't seen a Kevin Spacey movie since the allegations. But for this show, couldn't you make the argument this guy's cartoon had multiple writers? Yeah, but this is still his vision. This is still, like, his voice. Like, I can watch Adventure Time. If he was a board artist for Adventure Time, I can still watch Adventure Time and not feel, like, weird about it. Like, I don't think that's going to ruin Adventure Time for me or anything. But if I was a fan of this show, I don't think so. Yeah, it's actually crazy how Kyle Carrozza actually looks like that quintessential, like, Predator image. I actually thought this was a joke. Hold on, it still might be. I don't know cartoonbrew.com. This still might not actually be what he looks like. Let me see. Because it looks too much like the stereotypical Predator. Let me see. Nope, that is just straight up what he looks like, huh? Yep. Yep. Oh, yikes. That looks like if you typed in, like, Predator into Chat GPT and, like, made sure to take out the movies from it, like the Predator movies, and just said, like, Child Predator or something, this would be the image it spits out. Are you able to separate art from artist with Rurouni Kenshin? No, Rurouni Kenshin is ruined for me. Yeah, I can never watch or read Rurouni Kenshin. What's even... Oh wow, 2 people just asked that at the same time. What's even more deplorable about Rurouni Kenshin is that the wider anime community, like the manga... Wow. Like the manga community, forgave him for it. And overall, got off with a very slight slap on the wrist. So no, I absolutely cannot read, watch, or appreciate Rurouni Kenshin at all anymore. And I used to love that show growing up. They used to come on right before Yu Yu Hakusho, I think it was, and it was fire. Used to love it. Batosai the Manslayer. Oh, it's such a shame. What happened with Rurouni Kenshin? Author's a huge pedophile. Got busted, ton of CP, but wasn't really punished for it, and a lot of manga greats actually wrote letters of endorsement, like character pieces, forgiving him and saying why it's not like a big deal. It was lunacy. This man reminds me of the fat guy from Austin Powers. Fat bastard? How? When was the last time you watched Austin Powers? What? No, man. Not really. He literally looks like if you AI generated a pedophile. I don't know where you're getting the fat bastard comparison. I even pulled him up just to double check. This is not close. This is just not close here. The only thing in common is maybe the double chin. Maybe. And the mutton chops. These aren't mutton chops. Hey, wait a minute. This is, like, neckbeard chops. Mutton chops, even on Fat Bastard, they stop at where the jaw is supposed to be. This weirdo fucking let it ride down to, like, his collarbone. He looks like that rat guy from Harry Potter. Put some fucking respect on that guy's name. Peter Pettigrew. And he kind of does, actually. I think that's a much better comparison. Here. I'll pull up Peter Pettigrew for you. Now, he's missing the chops, but I really do think you put glasses on Peter Pettigrew and now we're talking. I briefly mentioned the situation with Unity a few days ago, just as a tiny little blurb. Basically a cameo appearance in a Marvel movie. I just kind of went over like the very basics of everything going wrong with Unity. But things have only gotten worse since then, so I just want to make a whole video here going over the entire situation and kind of dancing on Unity's grave, because they did it to themselves. Now, of course, they're not actually dead yet, but they are doing everything in their power to put themselves in the dirt. They are bent on self-destruction and nothing will stop them. It's like a scene out of 24, with Jack Bauer interrogating a terrorist and they're doing everything they can to take the cyanide pill to end it all. That's Unity as a business right now. So a channel called Upper Echelon just released an incredible video going over all of the new information about this situation, so I'm going to show you some clips of that, as well as just give you the broader stuff as well, just in case you're unfamiliar with all of it. This is going to be an all-encompassing biblical smackdown of everything Unity related.
Unity Technologies, a video game software company responsible for making the Unity game engine, has recently adjusted their fee structure.
On top of a flat subscription service, they will now charge game developers per install with retroactive terms of service changes, and that monetization scheme will have a severe negative impact on a great deal of projects.
In a nutshell, that's where all of this disaster stems from. He is just giving you the macaroni, so allow me to give you the cheese. Unity made a big announcement about a change to their monetization model where if you reach a certain level of success with their product, they will then start dipping their greedy, grubby little paws into your pockets and take a little piece for themselves out. So, if you're using Unity Personal and Unity Plus, you're eligible for this fee once you reach 200K in revenue over the last 12 months and have 200K lifetime installs, and that number increases to 1 million in 12 months and 1 million installs when you're using Pro or Enterprise. So basically, they will start taking money, and it's dictated how much at each level, per install of a game once it reaches this threshold. Now, there is no faith in this company left, like there's nothing but bad will, so no one really has any faith that they have any means of detecting fraudulent downloads. A lot of people were very quick to point out that you could absolutely fuck someone in the face by just constantly reinstalling these games on like virtual machines or pirated copies, but Unity's like, no, we've solved everything. Actually, piracy is extinct now. We'll know if that's happening. But no one believes them because it's very hard to take them at their word when they have no good faith left. So, there is potential for this to be exploited in a big way where you could cost companies or individuals tons and tons and tons of money just by gamifying this fee. And it's not like Unity really has an incentive to stop that because they're making the money off of that fee. That's money going into their piggy bank. So heavens to Betsy, sports fans, you tell me, why the fuck would they patch out this infinite money exploit when they're the ones that benefit from it? But anyway, this is the big bang that created the universe of problems for Unity here and started all of the hoopla with this entire catastrophe. The best way I've seen it described is, imagine if Adobe started to put up a big stink about YouTubers using their product. Like, imagine Adobe comes out and says, you know what, we've arbitrarily decided that YouTubers that reach a certain threshold of views are going to be subject to a fee because they use Adobe Premiere to edit. So, Mr. Beast, for example. Mr. Beast will now start paying X amount of dollars per view because he edited his content with Adobe. It should be pretty clear why that is an extremely scummy and ridiculous idea. And that's fundamentally what Unity's doing here. People paid for the tools. They made their own games with those tools. Adobe, now I'm getting lost in my own fucking genjutsu here, the fantasy I've crafted. Unity should not be entitled for a fee per install on the games that people make if they're successful. It's literally suffering from success.
We already know about John Riccitiello, however you say that, the CEO. He sold a bit of his stock right before this all happened. He was the former CEO at EA Games.
John Riccitiello, more like John Sissy-Tiello, because he's a little bitch. Man, what a humdinger. If Unity wasn't dead before this video, they're definitely dead after this one, because that was an absolute heater. So anyway, their CEO is John Riccitiello, however you say it, I also don't know. Upper Echelon is about to get into the meat of the new discoveries, but I want to continue laying the foundation for all of the prerequisite knowledge that you should have coming into the new stuff. So, their CEO is a very important component to this entire controversy. He is a former EA employee, former EA CEO, who was too greedy for EA. Let that sink in for a moment, marinate on those juices, let that percolate in your noodles for a moment. Someone was too greedy for EA, and it's this cartoon villain here. This goofball is the mayor of Doofustown. I don't know how this clown keeps landing prestigious positions. In 2011, during a stockholder meeting, he said, when you're 6 hours into playing Battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not that price sensitive at that point in time. So he's using this as a gold standard example of successful monetization, where you're deep into Battlefield, you're in the middle of doing something, and then bang, we flash a jump scare on screen that says you need to give us $1 if you want to reload right now. And he believes most players would relent and just give them the $1 because they are actively doing something and now have to pay in order to keep doing it. It's beyond evil. It is remarkably greedy. He also fell into some hot water last year where he called developers fucking idiots if they didn't focus on monetization. This dusty, crusty, abominable zombie only treats the games industry as a means to put the squeeze on consumers and hose them for every single dollar they have to their name. It's not surprising to see the direction Unity's going with this goofball at the helm, but what is surprising is the fact that John Riccitiello keeps landing powerful positions in the industry. He is not good at his job. His ideas are atrocious. He is a money repellent. EA couldn't even act on his advice because it was so over-the-top Looney Tunes level evil greed. He does not succeed as a leader. All he does is lead companies to fucking ruin, like reputational ruin, with what he's doing with Unity now. He just sinks the ship with terrible business ideas. I don't know how he even got the Unity CEO role. So now that's the basic lore rundown on the history of John the Money's Gone Riccitiello. Now, as Upper Echelon briefly mentioned there, this guy also sold a pretty substantial amount of Unity stock right before this announcement came out. Which, you know, hey, I'm not the feds here, I'm not the authorities, but to me, in my little caveman brain, that sounds a little bit like insider trading. There's no way this guy is dumb enough to have not realized the backlash that would ensue from this. And he happened to dump quite a bit of stock right before making the announcement. That's a little peculiar, don't you think? But anyway, you know, maybe just complete coincidence, perhaps.
But who's this guy? Tomar Barziv. Credit where credit is due, tugging on this thread is the result of a post on r/Unity from a user named Zijit. I'll link to that down below. Tomar Barziv is on the board of directors at Unity, but he is also the CEO of a company called IronSource.
IronSource is a company that merged with Unity to the tune of $4.4 billion. IronSource is a business that fundamentally focuses on monetizing developers' apps. And this merger was actually pretty controversial because a lot of users had reported some shady things with the IronSource platform and alleged that there was malware, there was adware bundled with certain things, just a lot of claims that were pretty alarming. Eventually, IronSource coped by saying, like, hey, it was just some bad actors who, you know, abused the platform. And so this merger already was pretty sour in terms of its reception due to all of these past experiences that users were alleging.
But it turns out that when you go down the list of Unity insiders who are selling stock in the company, this guy is by far the most aggressive. Over the past year alone, according to Fintel, it appears that Tomar Barziv has sold upwards of $20 million in Unity stock, which is interesting to say the very least.
20 million clams, huh? That is very interesting, I'd say. Now, of course, this isn't like the most unheard of thing ever with, you know, insiders selling stock, right? But the volume that he's selling, especially in comparison to the others, the frequency, and just his position within the company all makes this a very interesting case of selling 20 million doubloons worth of your Unity stock here.
First, at the same time as this $4.4 billion deal, or merger, was taking place, a company called AppLovin made a competing offer to buy out Unity completely for $20 billion. But Unity rejected this deal, citing that the deal, quote, would not reasonably be expected to result in a superior proposal.
Upper Echelon goes on to say that he finds it odd that they rejected that, considering the $20 billion offer is pretty significantly above the market cap at the time. But he did say that with the AppLovin deal, Unity would have been dropped to 49%, so there is complications to it. But this is an important piece of the puzzle here with everything going on, because Upper Echelon expands a bit further into the merger with IronSource, which was significantly less than they would have got than if they went with AppLovin. So there is a bit of a head scratcher to it, but Upper Echelon is diving deep in here and picking out all the breadcrumbs and getting to the truth.
During the deal with IronSource, two investment companies, Sequoia Capital and Silver Lake, pledged to come on board with $1 billion invested in the deal itself. Two more people, one from each of those companies, joined Unity's board of directors: Egon Durbin and Rolaf Botha, these nuts. Starting with Egon Durbin, he is a founding principal and managing director at Silver Lake, which it now appears, I shit you not, has sold the entirety of their directly held remaining stock in Unity Technologies, disclosed as of yesterday.
Casually sliding in that D's nuts moment was spectacular, really appreciated. So, important takeaways here is after the IronSource merger with Unity, two new people get added to the board, And they're both some pretty shady individuals as well. One of them, Aegon, actually dumps all of his held Unity stock, which was disclosed yesterday, apparently. And it's at this point Upper Echelon drags us kicking and screaming into the light. We're able to take a look at this septic tank for what it really is, full of shit. So these two new characters come on board, and Upper Echelon examined their connections. And Aegon, in particular, had a notable past where he was pretty tight with Tesla, especially during that whole boogeyman moment where Tesla might go private, that whole thing that floated around a few years ago. And overall, both of these two new members of the board at Unity both seem very enthusiastic about this modern tech trend to charge out the wazoo for API access. Twitter made a change to their pricing model for API access not too long ago. Reddit most recently made a change to their pricing model for API access, which was actually the catalyst for the Reddit blackout that many of you might remember. God rest the souls of all the accounts that went offline for 48 hours. Basically, the new tech trend is these massive corporations charging a lot of money for API access, and Upper Echelon draws this parallel with the way Unity's pricing model reflects the API pricing models for Twitter and Reddit. And given the connections of the two new members that joined the board, Botha and Durbin, it isn't far-fetched to assume that this is the direction Unity wants to go, to follow in line with those models, which is bad. That is bad for everybody in the communities. The API changes on Twitter and Reddit were wildly detrimental to a lot of different things, and the Unity changes are also extremely detrimental to a lot of different things. It is a bad thing, but it actually gets worse.
Here's a much better visualization of what's actually happening from a user named Sososki on Twitter. The yellow indicates the portion of developers who will now lose between 10 and 25% of their revenue with Unity's new terms of service. The orange, they stand to lose between 25 and 50% of their revenue. Red can lose between 50 and 100%, and that scary black line off to the left, not huge, but it is there. That's the area where these new terms will bankrupt your company because Unity decided to charge you more money per install than your app is even making.
There's no way Unity didn't do math. There's no way this Twitter user put more work into analyzing this than the company did making this decision. This is something that under no circumstances should have ever flown, period. Because there's no world where you as the company should bankrupt the people using your product because they're succeeding when using your product. It's nonsensical. Now, I realize I didn't answer this in the beginning, but there is a lot of confusion. They are changing the policy, but it doesn't mean that the companies that use Unity for their games are retroactively responsible to pay for the installs that people have already done prior to this new agreement. It's going forward. So yes, the rules change, but it doesn't enforce retroactively for payment. Though a lot of terms are changing, and there is a lot of scumminess there, of course, which has led to a pretty deep and interesting discussion around if Unity's even able to do this legally. And I'm not an expert, so of course take this with a grain of salt, but from what I've researched and from what I've read, it is legal to change the license the way they have and then still hold previous products to the same standards of the new license, even though when they made the game that license wasn't the same. It's legal to do that. It's just a morally fucked up thing to do and then enforce it that way retroactively. So there is a lot of nuance to this, and then the whole thing is just a messy fucking disaster. Truly, top to bottom. But I don't think it's illegal per se. But who knows? Maybe it is. I've seen discussions about a potential class action lawsuit from some developers, so I guess we'll see. But the big point here with this graph is that under this new monetization policy, developers can straight up go bankrupt just because their game is succeeding, because this fee is taking more money from the developers than the game they made is making them. So they're literally losing money with more installs. It's tragic. Like, it's unbelievable. And it's not like Unity wouldn't know that. Unity has this data. Again, there is no way a Twitter user did more research and more analysis than the company themselves. Unity has to know this. They just don't care. They don't give a fuck about it.
Focusing on the casual mobile market, we see this right here. Unity is offering a runtime fee waiver if you switch to Level Play as it tries to kill AppLovin. Level Play is a service from IronSource. That decision emulates a pattern that began with Twitter, was mirrored by Reddit, and is now making its way through the broader markets. The decision itself appears to be aimed at killing a competing service after Unity actually rejected a buyout offer from that service's owner in favor of a merger with ironSource, who stands to gain the most from this entire controversy.
I went a little out of order here, but I wanted to save this point for last. So apparently Unity is offering a fee waiver if you switch to the ironSource service, the level play service. So the conclusion here, the overall conclusion that Upper Echelon draws from all of this information presented, is that Unity is going down the modern tech trend model of the API charges that Twitter and Reddit use and implementing something very similar when it comes to game development in their products. And it seems like a lot of this is aimed at killing a competitor that actually offered to buy them out, AppLovin. AppLovin is a service that does directly compete with what ironSource is offering here, level play. So it does seem like all of this is trying to follow that trend and also trying to destroy that competitor. Now, I highly encourage all of you to go finish Upper Echelon's video because he gets into a lot more of the nitty-gritty here, as well as how developers are combating this currently and what they can do going forward in order to fight back against this kind of unhinged greed. But there's still so many pieces left on the chessboard that Upper Echelon does go through. So I'm going to put a link to his video in the description of this one. I highly encourage you to go check out the rest of it if you want to see even more about it, as well as how deep the rabbit hole goes, because again, there's still a lot more to this, and Upper Echelon does a great job at shedding light on all of it. So yeah, I think it should be pretty clear why so many gamers and pretty much everyone is upset about these Unity changes. This tech trend is not something that people should be celebrating, not that anybody is, but it really is a horrible trend with all of the API pricing changes and now Unity trying to integrate that model into gaming. All of this is a much worse thing for consumers, the average person, in this case, gamers and game developers. It is a bad scenario all around. So this situation is one that I really don't think Unity should ever recover from. The company deserves to fail for this, 100%. This is an impressive level of delusional greed that should absolutely sink this company. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over all of this. That's really about it. So yeah. I've got good news and bad news, and I don't care which one you want first because I've already made the decision for you. I know the optimal order is always good before the bad. So big group hug in the shower tonight. Let's hold hands and enter the smile zone together. One of the most annoying and degenerate pranksters the internet has spawned in recent memory has just been sentenced to 18 weeks in jail. His name is Mizzy, and for about a month he rose to internet infamy by doing some outrageously awful pranks. Basically, he'd just commit crimes and laugh about them while filming it, or he'd just make everyone's lives around him miserable. Just this plague of agony that swept through his local community to make everything a bit worse. I won't go through his entire resume of cringe, I'll just go ahead and give you some of his most embarrassing garbage, although in his eyes this is his magnum opus, these are his greatest hits. So the big one that made him pop off online is when him and his friends would walk into random people's houses to just frighten them, literally just kind of breaking and entering. Then there was this one where he stole a woman's dog at the park and ran away with the dog. And then of course, who could forget the timeless classics, his iconic series here, where he would go up to strangers and ask them if they want to die. Him and his equally pathetic friends would occasionally put on ski masks and run up on strangers, ambushing them, trying to block their way, asking them if they want to die over and over again. So overall, pretty high quality, harmless, gut-busting comedy here from one of the most brain-rotted, clout-poisoned, delusional, attention-starved worms TikTok has ever seen. Mizzy was able to get his name out there for about a month with a lot of people dunking on him, clowning on him, roasting him. He didn't really have fans except for like maybe 7 or 8 year olds that just liked the idea of being disruptive. But outside of that, it was everyone collectively just spitting on him. And then he landed an interview on a major television network where he made an absolute fucking fool of himself, and pretty much overnight, like a fart into the wind, his online presence vanished. Well, kind of. Everyone figured out the garlic to this vampire. The one weakness every clout-obsessed turbo loser has. Being ignored. Not getting attention. Collectively, most people just stopped paying attention to Mizzy altogether. He was just this little nuisance that would buzz around occasionally, pester people, and they just kind of disregard it. No one was talking about him anymore. It took away all of his power, like Voldemort's name. Like, no one cared anymore about how many times Mizzy would do something that would get himself arrested. They'd just be like, oh, okay, moving on. It's like pee into a public pool. You expect it, and it's gross, sure, but at the end of the day, out of sight, out of mind, you move on pretty quickly. So Mizzy stopped getting attention, and after this month of infamy, everyone forgot about him. But you know who didn't? The law. You see, Mizzy this entire time has still been striving to reclaim that former glory, which is so pathetic that he considers it success when really it's anything but. What he believes is his career would be anyone else's unimaginable shame. He lives in such a distorted reality that he believes everyone shitting on him is a good thing. For him, people just knowing his name is a W. That's a big fucking victory royale right there. Whereas the only reason people know his name is because everyone dislikes him. Like, his whole presence, his whole existence is to be disliked by people, and he is proud of it. That is a nightmarish way of living in this fucking world. I can't believe it, but that's whatever. It's his life, I suppose. If he wants to ruin it, by all means. So anyway, that brings us to today, where he has now been sentenced to 18 weeks in jail. He went to trial last month where he was found guilty on 2 charges of breaching a court order. And this court order is actually the most lenient shit imaginable. Basically, it asked him to stop filming people without their consent and posting it online. But this guy is an addict. Like, he can't stop scratching at his fucking neck to violate people's privacy, harass them, and then post it online for his content. He just has this inability to stop himself from being an insufferable asshole. This was the easiest court order ever issued. It was basically a don't be a douchebag order, and he failed. So now he's got 18 weeks detention in a young offender institution, and the judge told him, put bluntly, your pranks are not funny. Which I think is a beautiful thing to say from the judge. Just scathing right to his face, cutting right to the core. Just like, hey, listen, just to be honest, you suck. Like, I need you to understand me here. You're trash. Like, you are actual ass. Your pranks are horrible. I don't know how you sleep at night. You're bad. Like, I think that is just so beautiful in how frank he is with that. So then he said that the 19-year-old's pranks were motivated by a desire to be famous and to receive money and designer clothes from sponsors, which is something Mizzy himself said, which is pathetic, truly just sad. And then the judge continues, your actions caused innocent members of the public significant harm and distress. You claimed on national television the law was weak, and now 18 weeks in the slammer for it all. I will say, I wish they had went a little bit harder here. This is someone who has shown no remorse over any of this, and after he gets out, I have no doubt he's going right back to this behavior. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I even made a video 5 months ago going over just how little he gives a fuck about any punishment that might come his way. He's not going to let it stop him from just being a complete douchebag loser. So even though he'll spend 18 weeks in this detention facility, he's not going to stop this. This is all he seems to want to do with his life, is make everyone else's life more miserable and film it. So I don't think anything's going to change in the time that he'll spend away from society. I think he will come back and be just as annoying and degenerate as ever. That's my bold prediction on it, but no matter what, it is still good news, though, that he is finally receiving some kind of actual consequences for these actions. I think that is good news. That's something to make you smile. Now I'd like to give you some bad news. Colleen Ballinger is back. Colleen Ballinger made another apology video. This time, there's no music to it.
Hello everybody. Sorry I've been gone for so long. I've really missed this. I've missed talking to everyone every single day. Obviously, the last video that I posted on here is really embarrassing, to say the least. I was being accused of some pretty awful things, and I just was mad, and I should have handled that situation with maturity and empathy, but instead I just let my ego take over, and I'm really disappointed in myself.
Now, it's been quite a few months since this whole thing happened. Colleen Ballinger, Miranda Sings, was accused of communicating very inappropriately with underage fans, talking about some really weird stuff with them, a lot of very not good things going on in some group chats with them. I'm not just going to go over the entire situation. I covered it back then. Tons of people did. But what ended up happening is, after all of these accusations came to light, she responded with a ukulele musical number that I think she was striving for a Grammy, which unfortunately she wasn't nominated for. She made a song, a real song to make you wiggle your finger to, called The Toxic Gossip Train, where she didn't address anything really, or like disprove any of the claims or defend herself. She just made a song. So this is now quite a few months later. She's now coming out and saying that that whole thing was embarrassing and that, you know, she regrets the way she handled it, should have handled it with maturity. But I'm going to say, you should never regret writing The Toxic Gossip Train. That song took the Billboard charts by storm. You made a bop. Like, what you should be apologizing for is what you've actually been accused of, and then actually maybe try and talk about that instead, as opposed to your ukulele song. Like, that's not the big problem here. That's not the huge stain that needs to be addressed. Yeah, the ukulele song was a bafflingly cringe decision to do that, but the real thing here, the actual meat, is about all the accusations with the way that you've communicated with minors over the years, and the group chats, and like the sexual conversations you had with them about really awful and very weird things. That's what you need to actually talk about.
Over the last 15 years of my career, there have been moments where I was immature and inappropriate with some of my comedy, and there were times when I did not put enough thought into some of my fan interactions, and because of that behavior, people got hurt, and I am so sorry. I never wanted to hurt anybody, but it's clear that I did, and I feel so terrible about that. I also feel like there's probably people who are disappointed or feel abandoned by me because of my silence over the last few months. And I'm so sorry about that as well.
And this is just missing the mark, in my opinion. You're just giving a very vague response to a very specific set of awful allegations. By just delivering this blanketed, I went too far with my comedy, made some mistakes, hurt people, I'm sorry, you're not really doing anything besides just trying to move on from this as quickly as possible and hope that the bare minimum here is enough for an audience to stick with you. After she posted this fall vlog, she's now posted an additional, I think, 3 or 4 videos since now. She's doing daily posting again. So to me, this all just seems like, fine, I'll just reluctantly say I'm sorry. Hopefully an audience will stick around for a little bit, and I'm just going to start bombarding them with a ton of content to flood the rest of this out so that way people can just forget about it. That to me is what this comes across as. The accusations that have been made against her, as well as a lot of the things that have been brought to the public eye, are pretty awful. Like, it's not something that you can just, like, you know, wipe away with a statement like, it was just comedy that went too far and it was a mistake. Because, like, it doesn't seem like there was anything comedic about it, or even, like, supposed to be comedic about some of the things that have come out. It's just, like, pretty deplorable. Like, I feel like it warrants more of a direct tackling of what has been discussed and talked about. You know, like, just a more thorough explanation, I think, is warranted for the victims that have been affected by what you've done. This just seems very, like, I don't know the right word, but it seems very disingenuous and sincere, perhaps, where it's just trying to do as little as possible so you can continue to try and have your Colleen Vlogs channel do daily content and have an audience.
So I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that I create a positive, kind, inclusive, safe space online with my content. And if you want to be a part of my journey online, I would love to have you, and if not, I completely understand. I do not expect anyone to welcome me back with open arms. I don't expect to change anyone's mind with this video. I just wanted to come on here and say that I'm sorry, and I wanted to try to show people that it's possible for someone to grow and learn and be better after making mistakes many, many years ago. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to vlog again, and today I'm just gonna...
I cut out a little section in the middle there where she was talking about how, first and foremost, she's a mother, and she was explaining why she hasn't spoken on this sooner, and also that she's been trying to listen and learn from everything with what everyone's been saying. And then eventually it leads to this, where she talks about how she doesn't expect to change anyone's mind, but She hopes that she can try and prove that you can make up for past mistakes, and her path forward is vlogging. So then she transitions this apology into a vlog, which I think is a really weird decision to make. I don't know why you wouldn't make this 2 videos. I mean, maybe because the apologies is only like 3 minutes long and it's not specific, and it still doesn't even directly talk about any of the accusations. It just tiptoes around all of it. It really feels like the apology is more of like an avoidance thing, where she can just loosely talk around the subject and say that she's sorry for it without ever needing to explain herself or what happened or her actions or intentions or anything behind all of it. So it really seems like the intention was get the I'm sorries out and hope the audience is receptive to it and will stick around to watch the vlogs. And her gamble paid off. She was right. She knew her audience. If you read the comments, it's nothing but overwhelming support for her, and the views on her vlogs are great. So yeah, I'm still a bit stunned by the comments here. A lot of them are saying, this is what you should have said to begin with. We forgive you now. Now we understand. It's all good. What the fuck? She still didn't say anything. Like, did you even watch the video? She still said nothing. It's like, the second she said, I'm sorry, everything else went out the window as if it never even existed. She has still not even said anything about any of the actual accusations or anything about it. She just loosely said, ooh, those jokes didn't land. Bit of a mistake, and I know people got hurt. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, I guess she doesn't need to. She will, I suppose, continue to do just fine here without ever actually talking about all of these things. I really don't think you can just write off a lot of what's come out about the way she behaved around minors as just her being a quirky, zany jokester. Like, there's really no way of looking at it in any way that isn't weird. But whatever, I guess. Her audience has moved past it and forgiven her, so she's back to daily vlogging and will probably continue to do just fine. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little update here on some good and some bad news. That's really about it. So yeah. Not too long ago, I made a video on everyone's least favorite internet creator, Onision, talking about the fucked up shit he does and what makes him just so pitiful. Not that that's brave or anything, because that's his entire pathetic existence now. He just exists to be made fun of, just an internet punching bag. He's like a fucking blobfish, just cursed to be a loser and be pointed and laughed at. And he constantly just fuels that fire, so that way people will make fun of him, so that way he gets views on his videos. So he posts those goofy freak-out videos where he's like waving his arms in the air, shit like that, so that way people make fun of him for a dumb freak-out. He goes on Twitter and says, I'm gonna use all 3 inches of my penis in your tight ass, or some garbage. He's like a Mr. Meeseeks of YouTube. He's only here to get made fun of, and when people finally get tired of making fun of him, he just fucking disappears. That's all he has. It's such a worthless fucking existence online. But anyway, I swore with my cock on a stack of Bibles I wouldn't make another video about Onision. I wouldn't even mention his name. It'd be like Voldemort to me. But now I can't help myself. I have to talk about it because a champion has been summoned. Chris fucking Hansen has entered the Smash Bros. Arena and is now hunting Onision. There's no name more feared by predators than Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen is to predators what the Antichrist is to everyone else. He signals the end. Fear, terror, confusion, and a lot of times jail time. Chris Hansen is no lightweight, and now Onision's in his crosshairs.
911, what are you reporting?
Hi, there's a person who's been stalking me online, and they just showed up to my house.
Okay, and they're outside now?
They have a bunch of camera people, like they're YouTube stalkers. I didn't see any weapons. I just saw like 6 guys in my driveway, and one of them is knocking on my door.
Okay, and do we know his name at all?
It's Chris Hansen.
Greg is about as brave in person as you'd expect. The thing about dealing with a predator is you know exactly what a predator is going to do.
I love that little line right there, that little humdinger from Chris Hansen. Greg is about as brave in person as you'd expect. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in the world that thought for even a moment Greg was anything more than a gaping, seeping, oozing pussy. But I like that Chris Hansen just buckles down and says what we're all thinking. He's a fucking pussy, without saying those words. But it's what he's implying, obviously, and he's absolutely right. Greg didn't even have the balls to just talk to Chris Hansen at his door. I'm actually surprised the 911 operator didn't hang up the second he said it's Chris Hansen, or send the squad cars out there to help Chris Hansen. So, in a nutshell, Chris Hansen has been digging through all of Onision's past, all of everything that's been presented for all the evidence, and then he wanted to go get Greg's side of it, so he went to Greg's house, and Greg immediately called the police. The police were making fun of Onision in his own fucking driveway, and some of the officers were fans of Chris, which is just icing on the little shit cake that Greg created. It's just a beautiful little disaster, a nice little development in the Onision manga arc anime Fall from Grace. It's incredible. I can't wait to see where it develops next. Chris Hansen has positioned himself as the hero of this anime, Greg the antagonist, the big bad evil villain, and I can't wait to see Chris's next move in this series here. Again, I don't want to talk about Onision, but this shit right here had me smiling from ear to ear, just to watch Greg not even pretend to be a tough guy, immediately call the police, only to have the police show up and start making fun of him on his own property. Like, it's beautiful. That's fucking beautiful. He's as big a loser in real life as he is on the internet. That's incredible. That's crazy, and exactly what that kind of guy deserves. So yeah, just wanted to talk about this briefly. That's about it. Wishing you the best of luck here, Chris Hansen. Godspeed. See ya. How far would you go to be the best? The #1 in your industry? You've got to be willing to put everything on the line. And today's story is about a man who did just that. A man with dreams to be the #1 bouncy castle business. He wanted to be the jumping castle god. But unfortunately, he flew a little too close to the sun and his wings burned up. Well, not really his wings. He just burned up every business that also sold jumping castles. He committed a series of arson attacks on rival bouncy castle businesses. His name is James Balcom, and he looks like a silly character you'd make with the Dark Souls character creator. He's currently serving an 11-year sentence for all of this, and I just found the whole story so wild. I legitimately feel bad for all of the rival businesses because a few of them lost their entire business to his arson attacks. So there were very real victims and very real trauma from it, from having their literal place of work be lit on fire and fucking incinerated by this madman, this lunatic. So I wanted to go over this story here because it's a weird one. Did you see the video on Melbourne's bouncy castle king that was jailed over a string of fire attacks on his rival bouncy castle businesses? Oh my god, what? Anderson threw a Molotov cocktail through a smashed window at a business, causing a huge blaze that engulfed the factory and destroyed 110 jumping castles. And it looks like he's going to jail. And it looks like he's done quite a few of these. This is very interesting. This happened last month. You been holding out on me? Why didn't you tell me about this? Jumping castle operator jailed over arson attacks on Melbourne rivals. James Balcom set on destroying rival businesses that if one fire caused minor damage, he commissioned another. Wow. He desired to be the #1 in Melbourne's jumping castle game, and it's seen him jailed for up to 11 years over a series of arson attacks. What a crazy thing to commit your life to, being the #1 jumping castle guy. The whole bouncing castle cartel. It's so weird. It seems like most often the most unhinged business people are the ones in like the children's entertainment center or sphere. Like the bouncy castle guys running like an arson unit to take out competitors. Surprised this isn't from Florida. Fucking true. Amen. I am almost disappointed it's not from Florida, if I'm being honest. The County Court of Victoria heard that Balcom, whose company Awesome Party Hire was ranked #1 on Google after he commissioned the attacks on rival businesses, was arrested after he ordered that his own shed be torched. Galaxy Brain covering his tracks. No, I'm not the one behind the arson attacks. Look, someone lit my empty shed on fire last night. We have to put a stop to fucking Firefly ASAP. Please, God, anyone, the Human Torch has gone loose. He's rogue. Only way to stay on top. I would argue the only way to stay on top is to legitimately be the best jumping castle business as opposed to the only one that's not lit on fire. For example, let's say I'm in the market for getting some bouncy castles and I really want high quality product. I'm checking Google and Awesome Party Hire's #1. But then I scroll down and it says like all of the ones underneath it are literally cremated. I'd be like, this is fishy. I'll just get a bigger birthday cake. Fuck the castle. I feel like there'd just be like a very big red flag if that is the only jumping castle business that's left standing. 3 days after a March 2017 fire, Anderson was arrested and subsequently named Balcom as the instigator of the blaze and the attacks on rival businesses. Oh, so this has been going on for a while. Balcom, 58, appeared on Thursday by video link from prison in the county court where he was jailed for up to 11 years. Balcom has already served 2 years and 5 months and will be eligible for parole after 7 years and 10 months. Damn. They got him. I really am imagining like a Godfather situation. Like, it really seems so fucking intense in the Bouncy Castle game. You come to me on the eve of my daughter's birthday party and light my Bouncy Castle business on fire. You got some nerve. It's a dirty game in a cruel world. Yeah. It's not easy to put a smile on the face of children. It comes at a cost. And that cost is fire and flames. They're bouncing on the backs of the corpses of other Bouncy Castle businesses that came before them. And they don't even know it. It impacted the lives, livelihood of others and caused significant loss, suffering, and emotional trauma. Yeah, I mean, yeah, arson will do that to you. One business was targeted 3 times. At that point, just hire full-time firefighters on standby. That is so interesting. What does he look like? I want to look him up. Oh, wow. This... I imagine you also got an image in your head of some, like, lunatic-looking guy. I'm just going to tell you right now, he looks exactly like the image you have in your head. This looks like an AI-generated arsonist. What the fuck? It's always the people you least expect, I suppose. Jesus. Why is his head so pointed? I don't know, man. I didn't create him in the Street Fighter 6 character creator. I have no idea. I didn't work on these sliders. He got done dirty, though, I'll tell you that much. God, this is so powerful. You became very successful in the jumping castle industry, but you also became completely fixated and obsessed with it. It consumed your every waking moment, Court Judge Stuart Bales told Balcom. You became the Dark Knight. You fell right into the Joker's palms. You're better than this, James. Gotham deserved more. Is that a mugshot? Yeah, he's already served 2 years of his sentence. So this must have been when they brought him in. They probably had to drag him kicking and screaming out of his bouncy castle. 110 jumping castles ignited and lost in an instant. Jesus, they lost their entire business from that.